Turkey appears to be heading for its first presidential election runoff. With counting from Sunday's vote in its final stages, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan remains short of the 50% needed to win outright. He says he'll respect any decision to hold a second round. Victoria Gatenby reports.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan addressed supporters outside the headquarters of the Justice and Development Party in Ankara. It was his first appearance since the polls closed. He told them he's ready for a runoff if the election goes to a second round.
We have seen that the margin with the closest opponent is more than 2 million votes, and with the final result we will see a wider margin. We don't know if we will have a runoff, but if this is the result of the first round, the results of the runoff will be the same. If our nation has decided to go to a second round, we will respect that decision.
His main challenger, Kemal Kilicdaroglu, leads a six-party opposition alliance that's determined to unseat Erdogan. He urged supporters to be patient.
Despite his smear campaign against us, Erdogan hasn't gotten the result he wanted. We have to wait for the final results. If the first round wasn't enough to receive the mandate, we are going to get it in the runoff election.
Election officials have been counting the votes throughout the night. A third presidential candidate, Sinan Oğan, has done better than expected. Analysts say he has the potential to be kingmaker.
Oğan is an anti-immigrant, anti-refugee candidate, and I think it's basically a new epoch in Turkish politics because both sides will court him to get his votes, and they will have to do at least something to satisfy his base and his message.
So far, Oğan is refusing to back either Erdogan or Kilicdaroglu.
There will be another difficult 15 days ahead of us, and during this time, if the elections are completed with the current results and go to the second round, we will do our best to make this process a good one for our nation and our country. At this time, we are not saying that we will support one party or the other.
Erdogan has led Turkey for 2 decades, overseeing growth in trade and foreign investment, as well as ambitious infrastructure development projects. But more recently, he's been criticised for high inflation and the Turkish lira's devaluation to the US dollar. Kilicdaroglu says he wants to reform the system of governance and return power to parliament. A runoff vote will almost certainly be needed to decide Turkey's future. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
We're going to go live to Sami Zeydan, who's in Istanbul, as part of our special coverage of the elections.
Thanks so much. Yes, let's bring you up to speed with where things stand after a really intense night of vote counting. Well, here we are. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan leads the first round of voting according to the unofficial results that have been put out so far. No candidate has an outright majority. The ruling coalition is also leading in parliamentary elections, and nationalists have done better than expected. We've got our correspondents right across Turkey following this story for us. We have Zeynep Khudar joining us from Gaziantep, looking at how the heartland has voted. Sinem Kosoğlu is watching things from Istanbul, Turkey's commercial capital. Hashim Ahlabara standing by live for us at the CHP or opposition party headquarters in Ankara. But first, we start with Rasul Sardar. He's also in Ankara at the ruling AK Party's headquarters. And Rasul, even though Tayyip Erdogan did not get an overall majority, didn't get more than 50%, but they're seeing this as a victory, right?
That's correct, Sami, because just before the elections, we have seen that the polls are showing a slight lead of the opposition leader, Kemal Kilicdaroglu. However, the picture that we have now doesn't actually confirm that. So, as of now, more than 99% of the votes are counted, and Erdogan has already secured more than 49% of the votes. So that is regarded as quite a success. So yesterday, right on the balcony of this building behind me, which is AK Party's headquarters, at night, late in the night, he has delivered a speech to his supporters. And he said that, as of now, the unofficial results are not announced yet. However, he is going to respect the nation's will. But he also very much strongly signaled that it's going to be the second round. And his speech mostly was regarded as a campaign speech. So we can say that he already has started his campaign for the second round. So his messages were around the terrorism and the cooperation of the opposition, or indirect cooperation of the opposition with the terror groups such as PKK, which is on the terror list of Turkey and European Union and the USA. And he says that we haven't been in collaboration with them. He has promised a more powerful Turkey. And he said that this great march toward advancement is not going to stop. So all of these messages were regarded as a campaign, as he started his campaign for the second round. And we can see that by sending out these messages, he was building up on the nationalist and conservative base in Turkey, because the results of the latest election have shown us that nationalism is on rise and conservatism in this country is still having the biggest bulk of the votes here. And also the other messages that he sent out: unity, stability, and continuity. So that's also something that President Erdogan, during all of his election campaign, was building up on. He was saying that AK Party, or the People's Alliance, which he's leading, is only the guarantor of the stability in the country, the unity in the country, and the continuity in the country. On the other hand, he was accusing the opposition of being fragmented and fragile, and he was calling on voters not to jeopardize this unity, stability, and continuity in Turkey. So in that sense, we can say that he has already started his campaign.
Rasul, the focus now is on the second round of voting. Talk us through the strategy of the AK Party to try and clinch a bigger majority in or a bigger win in the second round.
Well, Sami, the picture as of now is quite clear. So Erdogan is regarded as a winner. After 21 years in power, he still was able to get almost 50% of the votes in this country. So the nationalism and conservatism are on rise, or they are stable in this country. On the other hand, we see that the opposition is quite fragile, and they couldn't get what they wanted. Some of the two parties that split from AK Party, the Good Party and the Democracy and Progress Party, led by Ahmet Davutoğlu and Ali Babacan, and also the Felicity Party, which is regarded as the Islamic party in Turkey. They have joined CHP, but as when we look at the results, we see that they had very little contribution to the main opposition party, and that is also being heavily criticized. On the other hand, as I said, the nationalism is on rise. The biggest surprise was Sinan Ogan and his ATA alliance. So no one was expecting him to get more than 5%. And also we see that nationalist MHP party secured more than 10%. Nationalist Good Party secured around 10%. So this is giving us a picture. However, here, one of the other surprises is the New Welfare Party, led by Fatih Erbakan, the son of a former conservative prime minister in Turkey, and he got almost 3% of the vote. So, and he's in alliance with Erdogan. So that was also another surprise of this. But when it comes to the losing sides, Kemal Kilicdaroglu, the leader of the opposition, is now heavily being criticized by many of his supporters that the strategy was wrong. And also, on the other hand, we see that while the People's Alliance is sending out the message of the unity, now we probably are going to see the internal fights within the opposition, and these next 2 weeks toward the second round are going to be quite tense and tight, Sami.
Rasul, you mentioned Kemal Kilicdaroglu, so we're going to thank you very much for the reporting from the headquarters of the AK Party. Let's take this now to the headquarters of Kemal Kilicdaroglu's CHP, or Republican People's Party. We've got Hashim Ahlabara standing by live for us there. And Hashim, this result of the first round means an uphill challenge for Kemal Kilicdaroglu's opposition coalition. Do they think they can turn this around in a second round?
It is an uncharted territory for them, Sami, for the simple reason is that when they crafted their own election campaign for the first round, they wanted to win the election in the first round. For the simple reason, they built their campaign on the assumption that if in the areas which were hit by the earthquakes, the resentment and the dissent grows, they will tap into that resentment and they will get significant portion of the votes from those areas, and that will be enough for them to boost their chances at the parliamentary elections and then to move forward. Two, they thought that there is a trend in the country that would pave the way for more young voters with no political affiliations, young people pretty much concerned more about the need to modernize the country, to think more about economy. What they saw yesterday was surprising to them, particularly the earthquake-hit areas voting for Erdogan and also the rise of nationalism. So starting from tomorrow, when they start thinking about their campaign for the runoff, it is going to be an uphill climb for them.
Going to be an uphill. Is this also becoming something of a threat to the unity of the coalition, Hashim?
Indeed, Sami, yesterday when Kemal Kilicdaroglu, the main opposition candidate, along with the other key members of the opposition coalition, came on the stage and they said, we need to stand united. We are definitely going to win the election because there is mounting aspiration among the Turkish people for the need to bring about genuine democracy and reform the economy. It was for a particular reason, because he does understand that they will have to hold together the opposition for the runoff. This is an opposition that has been divided because of huge differences over a wide range of political and economic issues. Now, when they move forward, they are going to grapple with a key issue here. Are they going to be able to convince Sinan Ogan to join them? Sinan Ogan it stands for the right with the ultra-nationalist agenda, and not everybody on this coalition is on the same page with him. So convincing him to join without further upsetting the other members of the opposition is going to be extremely delicate. Number two, they will have to look at the map, analyze the data, see where they have failed, where they have made some gains, and try to reinvent themselves in 2 weeks to be able to win the election. But they do understand it is going to be extremely difficult. In fact, in a way or another, they do understand they might need a miracle to win the runoff.
Thanks so much, Hashim Ahlabara, reporting to us there from Ankara. Let's move this now from the political capital to the commercial and cultural beating heart of Turkey. We've got Sinem Kosoğlu standing by for us live in Istanbul. And Sinem, we know before this election there was a vicious battle going on for the big cities. The AK Party trying to redeem itself of the loss of some of these big cities during the last mayoral elections. Where did the big cities go so far in this first round?
Well, Sami, yes, we have been saying that, especially for Istanbul, whoever wins Istanbul would win Turkey. This is a political understanding, a tradition among Turkish politicians. This is what they believe, and we know that both the opposition and the president's side have been fighting strong to get Istanbul. Well, in the parliament there are 600 seats, and when I look at the current results, AK Party is the leading party, CHP is the second biggest party in the parliament, Pro-Kurdish Party, under the new umbrella name Green Left Party, is the third, and the Nationalist Party, MHP, is the fourth. When you look at Istanbul, Sami, in Istanbul, right now, the ruling AK Party has the biggest majority in the parliament with 40 seats. Then comes CHP with 31 seats. And when you look at Ankara, the Turkish capital, again, AK Party is leading with 15 seats. CHP follows that with 13. And Izmir is the castle of the Turkish secularists, is the power base of the Republican opposition party, CHP, where they have 14 seats in the parliament and the ruling AK Party 8 seats. Of course, this shows us that, especially Istanbul and Ankara, the ruling AK Party is still leading. But in Turkey, the coastal cities are usually the secularist ones, mainly supporting the CHP, the main opposition party, or the good party, the secular nationalist party, an offshoot from the MHP. But what is more interesting is the southeastern and eastern cities, the Kurdish-dominated cities. We see that the Green Left Party, the pro-Kurdish party, has literally swept off these cities. For instance, in Hakkari, there are 3 MPs, all of them are pro-Kurdish party. Again, one of the biggest, largest cities of the region, the pro-Kurdish party is leading. This is a message, of course, for President Erdogan and Kemal Kilicdaroglu, who are going to renew their campaigning and increase their hand in the negotiating table to win those cities, to get over this neck-and-neck competition. Sami?
Thanks so much, Sinem Kosoğlu there from Istanbul. Let's take this now to Gaziantep, one of those heartland areas of Turkey, where we've got Zeynep Khudur standing by live for us. And one of the big headlines from the east of the country when it comes to the Kurdish vote, it seems the HDP vote went more to the opposition, right?
Well, yes, but at the same time, the main Kurdish political force, the HDP, they held a press conference a few hours ago, and they admitted defeat. And in fact, Kurdish voters are very much disappointed. The Kurds, or the HDP, entered this presidential race. They entered into a political gambit. They decided to join the opposition alliance. They thought that this is the best way forward to unseat the president. They have fallen out with the AK party in recent years. For them, the priority is to remove him from power. That's what we felt after talking to, officials in that area and the people. What happened? They lost seats in parliament. They had 67 MPs in parliament, now 62, and they lost it to their allies, the CHP, which is also an unlikely partner, because before the AK party came to power 20 years ago, it was CHP-led governments, and they denied the Kurds their rights. So the Kurds feel that in one way or another, they have been used by the different political parties. So there's a lot of disappointment there. They thought that this would be over in the first round, that if they don't feel their own candidate like they did back in 2018, that this would be over, the opposition would win. And we've been speaking to officials there, and they say a new beginning will start, a new era of relations, but that did not happen. So some are even questioning, did they make the right move? If they entered the race alone and maybe garner 10% of the vote, then they could have a strong hand on the negotiating table.
All right, thanks so much, Zeynep Khudur there, live from Gaziantep. All right, let's now start analysing this and bring in our guests. We have joining us Ali Chokriolo, our analyst, political analyst. So good for you to be with us. Ali, let's start with taking a step back and looking at the big picture. Sure. What went better for Erdogan than many were expecting? What went worse for the opposition than many were hoping?
Well, Erdogan maintained its basis of support in the heartland of Anatolia, in Turkey. Although he lost some support in the southeast, he still maintained the central Anatolian provinces. And I think he also maintained some credible level of support in the big cities as well.
Does he now enter the second round with momentum? He's got more than his challenger in the presidential election. He's got more in the parliament.
He does have the momentum behind him. He was very successful also in the earthquake-hit region. So that's one thing that made
was a bit of a surprise?
Well, some people find it surprising. I also expected that, there will be some opposition support in the southeast, in these earthquake regions. But he apparently delivered what they expected of him, and promises that he will deliver even better in the aftermath of the election. For the opposition, what went wrong is they couldn't actually get any support from the heart of the country, the heartland of Turkey, and also some of the alliance members could not actually maintain their level of support, especially the nationalists. The Nationalist Action Party was very successful, I think, in maintaining 10 to 11% of the vote, whereas E Party, a major partner in the opposition alliance, was not able to raise its level of support in any significant way.
So those are the nationalists in the opposition alliance.
Yes.
When you look at other nationalists, such as what happened with Sinan Oğan,
yes,
with the MHP, some of them did better than expected, right?
Much better. It looks like the fourth candidate resigning actually did not help the opposition alliance, but rather helped the nationalists' OAN campaign, which perhaps is not surprising, but one would have hoped that that support went more heavily to the opposition, because they actually are not voting for Erdogan, but voting for a loser in a sense, because OAN has no chance of remaining to the second round. So we'll see what happens in the next round.
The bottom line is this is a nation that so far is leaning more towards continuity than change,
That's
right?
for sure, but there is always some change in the continuity as well. Why? Because Erdogan's economic policy needs some changes, some adjustments. He might not be able to resist those pressures from the markets any longer after the election. And also, there are political reforms that might be brought to the agenda by the new partners in the alliance.
Ali, always good talking to you. We're going to continue throughout the day. Thanks so much for coming in right now. We're going to bring in another analyst in a moment. But while we're doing that, let me just bring you up to speed very quickly. We've had the first round of elections. 99.4% of that vote has been counted, and it shows that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is doing better than his main challenger. No candidate, as I've been saying, has won the election outright, but President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been placed at 49%. His challenger, 49.42. His challenger, Kemal Kilicdaroglu, at 44. So quite a big gap between the two. Parliamentary election results, again, the ruling coalition with 49%, which translates into a majority of seats into parliament so far, versus what the opposition have, which is just over a 34 or 5% of the vote so far. All right, let's bring in now our next guest. We've got, good to have Hakan once again, AKbash with us. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me again.
A little warmer now than it was last night,
Yes.
and it's not raining, so that's good. Can we break down, Ali, some of the segments of the vote that people were making a lot of? And let me start by asking you, what happened to the youth vote?
Great question. It appears that given the third candidate, Sinan Oğan's performance, they seem to either have not gone to the polls or they seem to have voted for change, i.e. Oğan, in terms of protesting either candidate, because Generation Z had been expecting for change. And it's interesting, even they were polarized among themselves, and half of them, they had nothing to do with the politics, but the other half were like either supporting nationalism and Turkey sort of getting bolder in the sort of global arena. But it looks like neither one of them really voted for either Kılıçdaroğlu or Erdogan.
What happened to the Kurdish vote? Did they put themselves in a box now by backing, or at least the HDP component of it, the opposition, which is struggling now?
There are many lessons to be taken after this election for the opposition parties. But if I look at the performance of the coalition partners, and I wouldn't put Kurdish as a part of the official coalition, but still they performed in line with the historical votes that they secured. And but they are actually themselves, they do not consider themselves successful based on their sort of press releases. So I think that they were hoping to do far better than they have done. But historically speaking, this is as far as they've gone. And they've done this against a propaganda machine that delivered really putting them, quote, in bed with PKK.
Okay.
So they didn't do, either way, too bad or too great.
Okay, if we can call it the earthquake vote, did it go stronger to Erdogan and the ARK party than some people were predicting?
Let me give you an example. These earthquakes happened in Maraş, and Erdogan ended up receiving his historically highest vote in Maraş. So, for example, Adıyaman, he also emerged with over 70% of the electorate. So, again, even for those earthquake regions, part of the issue, I believe, they voted for, the leader that they know, who pledged them to rebuild their lives in less than a year. And he even delivered in record time some of the new houses built. So, but the other issue, which we'll see in the second round, I believe about half of the electorate had to migrate to the West. And I'm not sure if they were able to vote in the election. So we will see the impact of that other half of the voters in the second round.
Why will we see it more in the second round? Do you think they'll be more energized now?
Well, in the second round, I don't believe overall there will be a higher turnout than this historically high 88%. But I think it's going to go down to sort of really demoralize opposition, trying to mobilize their voters back to the polls. And I'm not sure if they will have a clear message, because Turkey voted for change, in my mind, and they also voted for more nationalism and for more religious conservatism. So I think that there were messages to both the ruling alliance, because if I look at the numbers, for example, AKP lost some votes vis-à-vis the 2018, but this showed the political genius of President Erdogan, because his ruling alliance did far better than the opposition's alliance. And
so cautious support for Erdogan, is that how we're putting it?
I would say Erdogan is clearly ahead. I think he's got the psychological advantage. He's closer to win. I think he needs about 350,000 votes as opposed to almost 3 million for the opposition. So I think he's very close to winner, and he's going to continue his messages that seems to have resonated. And by the way, all the pollsters and pundits have really missed the undercurrent, the pro-ruling party undercurrent.
Which kind of vindicates us that we were very cautious in Al Jazeera with those polls. Everyone had their polls saying different things.
Absolutely right.
Anyway, thank you so much for talking to us, Hakan.
Thank you.
I know we're going to talk more, but for now, here is where we are. We're looking ahead, of course, now to a second round. We'll be here monitoring it for you. For now, I'm going to hand you back to Rob in Doha.
Much. We're going to be checking in with you over the next few hours, but for now, Sami Zeidan, thank you.